Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Podcast. It is Tuesday, October 22nd, special anniversary, of course, in Chicago Cubs history. We will talk about that later, what happened on this day back in 2016. I hope you know that answer. Luke Stuckmeyer, Ryan Herrera, Cody Delmendo, Law on the Draw, running the ones and twos in his double door T-shirt.
Shout out, 20-year reunion. This was a great year. I don't know when this was.
Damon in Milwaukee, right?
Yeah. The crotch, if you will.
Is it still there? Double door? It's gone.
No, it's gone, but the building is still there.
Building's still there, but double door's gone.
Yeah.
Right around the corner, Cody, from the greatest breakfast place in all of America.
Yes.
What's that? Bongo Room, Wicker Park.
Room. R.I.P. is to that as well, right?
Rest in peace to the one that was in Andersonville.
Isn't that gone as well, or no?
Bongo Room's not. That Bongo Room is not gone.
Okay.
If it is, somebody should have called me.
The one in my neighborhood is gone.
Yeah, the one in Andersonville is gone, and the one in the Loop is gone.
Yeah, I saw Urge Overkill on the 20th anniversary of the Double Door.
Nice.
Wicker that? Park.
I keep thinking you're going to say Double Doink, and I'm like,
oof,
that's like the first thing that pops in my head.
No, thank you.
Wicker
Saw
Park.
That too.
Best bar in Wicker Park, Little Victories.
Nice.
I don't know where that is.
On Division.
Must be something that was something else back in the day when I lived. That was
kind of
divey. I used to walk to those bars.
Kind of divey, has dart boards. You can get a beer for less than $7.
Not Phyllis's Musical Inn where they have the ping pong table.
Now we're talking.
We'll take you someday.
That's a
Luke.
total dive.
Gold Star's
over there.
Gold Star's been there for a long time.
That place is good.
You go into the neighborhood, you got Innertown, you got Happy Village.
Yeah.
Whew, now we're talking.
Division Street, Wicker Park.
Fat Pour's still there. That was fairly new for a while.
Yeah, that's
that street.
That was Next Generation.
That's Division.
That's my 30s era, as Taylor Swift
nice.
would.
Fat Pour was?
No, like
what
just
color?
Division Street on Wicker Park. Like
that section.
That's my
Street.
era.
See, I always liked
like
that.
Every 30-year-old's era now.
I lived over there for like 15 years. I like that part of Division Street better than my wife lived over by the other Division Street where it's,
like Milwaukee Ashland?
No, closer to the Viagra Triangle there.
Oh gosh.
You know what's that?
Yeah.
What's that section there called?
I mean, like Gold Coast or whatever. I mean, the Viagra Triangle is what I think.
Well, it's like the Lodge and all those other places are all over there,
Oh, poor Gary. This means nothing for those that live in the burbs. Oh, poor Gary.
We'll have to bring you out one day.
Gary.
Live a little, bro.
Hey, Gary. By the way, Gary, I was in the Discord today, huh? I don't know who saw me. I was there.
Rare
Speaking
appearance.
of which, we want to give a shout out to this before we get started. We're going to talk about Nico Hoerner's surgery, obviously, today, and we'll continue our grades and the World Series. But there is a diehard deal right now. Lowest price ever.
Deal?
Limited time.
Oh.
Limited?
Limited time. Right now, $48. $48. It gets you access to the Discord. It gets you the first time when you sign up. Now, if you're a first timer and you sign up for this 48, it gets you the free shirt. It doesn't include the reoccurring shirt, which was the old deal, which was so.
We'll be back soon.
It's a one time shirt, but it's $48.
It's $4 a month.
$4 a month,
and like basically you get a free shirt, which is most of the cost of that. So there you go.
This is a more than $4 a day habit.
Seriously.
More like a $7 a day habit,
I was going to say, that's Starbucks. That's more than $4, brother.
It's real bad.
Anyways, become a diehard.
Hey, diehard. You get in the Discord, you hang out, you get the discount to the merch.
Get all the written content.
By the way, I got my
discounts
Bulls merch on.
Discounts to events.
I got my CHGO flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good reasons to become a diehard.
Here, let me let it breathe a little bit so you can see the merch.
Merch.
Let it breathe. Let that chest out, Luke.
You want to meet Luke?
Chest
meet
out,
him at an event. You get 20% off on the events. As a diehard.
Anyways, right now, $48.
And you get to
limited
read all
time
of Ryan's
deal.
content.
Mm-hmm. All of
Get in
everyone's
on it.
content.
Link is in the
everyone's
description, and I also just popped in the chat for all of you.
Thank you very much.
It's-
FOMO. Don't miss out on that.
Yeah, it's a great deal, especially with the holidays right around the corner.
It's a great deal. Tell your friend. Put it on your Santa's wish list. You want a diehard membership.
That's
Yeah.
a good price for a
as we
Christmas
always
holiday gift.
as we always say, the diehard card just increases your riz.
It's not sus.
And your drip.
Yeah, like Luke Stuckmeyer, when he walks around with that diehard card,
Yeah.
he is just
My
the
pocket
the
glows.
aura. He already has an
His
incredible
aura,
aura,
yeah.
but like
I
aura
already
just
have
increases even more.
the angel ring above my head, you know,
Uh-huh.
but then my back pocket glows. The diehard card in there.
Are you sure that's just not the light on your phone? So that you forgot to turn off.
It's not it's the flashlight. I can never get that damn thing turned off.
That's,
How do I turn this off?
You and
How did it turn on?
technology. Oh man.
Then you turn it around, it gets you in the eye, and you're half blinded. All right, so I saw Sarah Langs with before we get to Nico. I saw Sarah Langs with a stat about something that's going to happen for the first time ever in the World Series, and I thought this was cool. First time ever, WRC players in 2024 that were eligible ranked for WRC plus, right? Which some people like better than WAR. Whatever, it's a good stat, right?
Well, it's definitely it's just for offense.
Yeah,
A WAR is supposed to accumulate for the entire value of a player.
right.
WRC plus is just
How good is this hitter?
how good
Yeah.
are you above league average or not?
Right. And so again, league average is like 100, correct?
Yes.
So who was number one this season? Aaron Judge, 218. Who was second? Ohtani, 181. Who was third? Juan Soto, 180. They will all be playing. The top three, for the first time ever, will be playing in the same World Series. You want star power, you're getting star power. I've begged for star power on the Chicago Cubs. You're getting superstar power in this World Series. It's not the teams we want to see, but it is three players, 1, 2, 3, Judge, Ohtani, Soto, that in the last 5 years or less, obviously less, have been available and on the market for your Chicago Cubs if they wanted to get involved in the running for it. If they wanted to spend wild money, all three of these guys were available, and all three of them are in the World Series.
Woof.
Soto's still on the market.
Well, that
Let's
way
just
to
say.
just really depress me, Luke. Like we already knew this, but I mean, thank you for increasing the depression that I'm already experiencing.
It's
This
the terrible
entire month-
Tuesdays.
This entire month of October has been nothing but depressing. So, thank you
Except for the weather.
No,
Yeah,
weather's
I
been
mean,
great.
thank God the weather has been fine outside of like those few days last week. But like,
Driest October on record there, Mr. Meteorologist.
Ever.
We're trending that way. 7 days
yeah,
left.
yeah, we got some days left.
I had to turn the sprinkler on the other day.
Yeah.
Grass was drying out.
anyways,
yeah. It's tough.
Cubs need one of these guys.
It's good to watch. It's also tough to watch, you know,
yes.
especially because those players were available. It's not like they're locked up with the team and they're never leaving. It's not like, you know, somebody that's just going to be on that team forever. Judge might stay with the Yankees forever, but the other two guys have already switched clubs.
Mhm. Well,
So-
the thing about Soto is that you could have traded for him. You know,
Yeah.
last offseason,
I could have pushed for it.
I pushed for it. I said that he was the one guy that I would have been like, okay, if they traded Christopher Morel for. Now in hindsight, it's like, well, they probably should have traded Christopher Morel for anyone. But at the time, with the value that Morel was at, like, I felt like his value was, you could have included him in a trade. Like, and as we talked about yesterday, they have a lot of prospect capital. They could have easily traded for Juan Soto. Why they didn't, I don't know.
Credit to me. I pushed for it trade deadline of 2022. I said I would have, if I was the Cubs, I would have traded a whole lot to get him.
Humble of
At
you and
2022.
credit of you. credit
Well,
to
if
you.
I
With
would've
2.5
known-
years,
if I would've
remaining
known-
of club control.
If I would have known how things would have played out with how they are going to construct the roster, yeah, I'm with you there.
I would have traded for him and then constructed the roster around him. Like
even without an extension, you would have made the trade even without the extension. I always said, listen, if you can get the extension, that's a different thing. But I also don't want to totally deplete the farm system. That was my argument at the time. Now I look at it and say, well, you should have put a lot of those prospects.
Sure, but you also had 2.5 years of club control on him if you would have traded him. If you would have traded for him at that point, which gave you 2.5 years to sell him on staying in Chicago to try to get a deal done. The problem is with Boris being his agent, it was going to be hard to get a contract extension done with him anyway. But that also decreases the value of what you would have had to give up for him if you don't have more than 2.5 years of control.
Well, you would have run the risk of trading for him, depleting the farm system that you just spent all this time trying to build up, and then having him walk away and go to a team like the Yankees, and then you're looking here going, well, we have no prospects. We have no Soto,
you run that risk, but you run the risk of if you're trading for a star this offseason, you're running the risk of depleting some of your farm system. I never expected it, right? I'm not saying like I was like, oh, they could actually do this in 2022. Like, no, they weren't going to do that. But I obviously said it then. I'm like, this would be a really great move to do now because of the club control that he has. And, you're
not wrong.
Expedite your rebuild a little bit when you get a star like Juan Soto in there. But anyway, I will say we're talking about the World Series, and I keep seeing this, like people saying like it's bad for baseball that the Yankees and Dodgers are in the World Series.
Great for baseball.
I don't get that. I don't understand. You can hate the Yankees and Dodgers and just not want to see either of them win the World Series. That's fine. But to say it's bad for baseball, it's the two biggest teams in Major League Baseball playing in the World Series. Like you were talking about growing the game. Yeah. People are going to watch this that don't even care about baseball that much just because it's the Yankees and the Dodgers. Maybe
it used to be the World Series all the time.
Yeah. And I will say, and we've talked about this, how good organizations keep making the playoffs, keep giving themselves chances, keep doing that. And I get it. The Dodgers, they won in 2020 and then they didn't win a World Series before that since like 88, something like that. The Yankees won in 2009, but they haven't been to a lot of World Series in the last 20 years. I think 2009 is the only one in the last 20 years.
This is their first pennant since 2009.
Yeah. So I get it. It's not like these big markets are winning the World Series every year, but they are consistently giving themselves chances to be in. The Dodgers have been in a few World Series. The Yankees and Dodgers feels like they're in the pennant race every year, and the ALCS or NLCS every year. Like, just the more you're in the playoffs, the more you're giving yourself chances, the better your odds are that you're going to eventually make a World Series. And now you've got both of them in there at the same time. Like, this should be more of a message to the teams, to a team like the Cubs. Like, you invest in your roster. You obviously have more resources than a lot of other teams in Major League Baseball, most other teams in Major League Baseball. And if you keep getting into the playoffs, and like when we talked about with Cerami, it shouldn't be just like make the wild card. It should be higher goals than that, get one of those top 2 seeds. But the more you give yourself chances, the more you get yourself in the playoffs, the better your odds are that you're eventually going to make a World Series and potentially win another World Series. So I say that as back to my point of it's good for the game to have your 2 biggest clubs in the World Series. It's good to send a message, I guess, that you have the teams that invest a lot of resources into their roster, that don't go into extended rebuilds, that they're in it. And I don't get the narrative that this is bad for baseball. It just, though people are saying that
the 3 best players in baseball are all going to be on the spotlight.
Yeah, Major League Baseball is happy that this is the matchup.
For sure. And I'm not like jumping like up and down saying like I'm so happy that the Yankees and Dodgers are in it, but it's
it's not the Cubs.
This is going to be a great World Series. I think I'm excited to see these teams play in the World Series.
It's 2 teams showing you they desperately want to win at any cost. Isn't that what every fan should want their owner to do? Win at any cost. Yeah. Go all in.
That's what's been bothering me. Like, there's the people online who are like pointing out that it was like the top 3 roster. The money. It was the payrolls. Dodgers. It was the payrolls, and then the Mets were the 3rd. And it was like, oh, no one else is going to win the World Series. Why are people like crying poor for their billionaire owners?
Yeah,
every owner is a billionaire. Every owner can do this. It's just they don't want to.
Yeah.
So like, don't cry for the owners. Like, that's the weirdest. It's such a weird thing that people do.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
I simply just don't like either team. So
And that's fine.
that's it. I hope this game ends in 4 games.
The series is over in 4 games?
Yeah, I hope this series is
Well,
over in 4
I'm going to
games.
tell you about something. We're going to talk about Nico Hoerner in a second, but something that is still going on. Say Prost to bigger and better savings on your next vehicle because Cartoberfest is going on right now at Ray Chevrolet. Head in today to shop their huge selection of new Chevy models at new low prices. Right now, take $3,000 up to $12,000 off MSRP on new Chevy models. Or cruise through fall your own way and shop over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000. As one of the top-selling Chevy dealers in the Midwest, you're able to shop one of Chicagoland's largest Chevy inventories. Visit our partner this October at their location on Route 12 in Fox Lake or at raychevrolet.com. Route 12, also known as Rand Road. And if you've ever heard of Ray Chevrolet, then you know about Ray's Price Promise. That's their guarantee to make your next vehicle more affordable than ever with no price changing, no add-ons, no hidden fees ever. That means the incredible prices we're talking about now on the CHGO Cubs podcast, same prices you're going to hear when you go into Ray Chevy or shop online at Ray Chevy. Shop Cartoberfest all month long by visiting Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or raychevrolet.com. They've been serving the community since 1963. Together, let's drive.
Luke, I have to tell you about Game Time and specifically their new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I've been talking about it. Bulls Thunder on Saturday, 7 p.m. at the United Center. I'm seeing it right now on Game Time as low as $63, and I clicked that Game Time Picks feature, and it filters out the fluff and finds me some incredible deals. And this is one of the newest feature that Game Time put out there, and I think it's great because you don't have to search through a whole bunch of tickets to find something you like. It filters it out and finds you the best deal for you. Other things I like about Game Time is it's all in pricing. You toggle that feature and it shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You get a panoramic view from the seat that you pick in the app before you buy. So if you're not familiar with the venue, you click on the ticket you want and you can see exactly what your view is going to be at whatever event you're at. I think that's a really awesome feature, one of my favorites. Game Time also offers the lowest price guarantee, or they will credit you 110% of the difference. And Game Time's ticket coverage means your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Game time.
Also, Barbara was not in jail. She seems
No.
to think I was in
He was
jail.
in
Mexico.
Mexico.
Mexico. He's in Mexico.
Yeah.
He was definitely in Mexico.
There's
Don't let
jails
the
in
facts
Mexico.
get in the way of a good
Sure.
story.
I wasn't in any of those either.
He wasn't specifically in a Mexican jail. He was just in Mexico. Was it James or Mike Taylor? Somebody said,
Hype R&T is a good
I'm
comment.
awake for a show. I guess we could take
There you
that
go,
a
Mike
couple
Taylor.
ways. Like,
Maybe
finally
he works
having,
nights.
hopefully we're not putting you to sleep. And this is just a change in your schedule for a live show.
Well, based off
Anyways,
social
welcome.
media and how people are taking our grades, I don't think we're putting people to sleep. We're just making people mad.
Yeah,
Angry.
which, whatever. It's fine.
I like Hype R&T's comment. Says, I don't think it's crying for the owner. I think it's more of an issue that this sport is being dumb and doesn't have a cap for how teams can spin. Every team should be equal in a competition.
Now, if the Cubs were the Dodgers instead and spending $300 million, I don't think they would say that.
Correct.
If your
That's
team
fair.
was the one that had the
Correct.
resources and was
I don't even
spending
necessarily
$300 million.
agree. I just think it's another perspective to look at it. Like, I don't know. If you're not going to have a cap, then yeah, like, sure. What Law said about owners, like, yeah, you're right. But at the same time, you know, some markets are bigger than the other.
I know I'm going to
Some teams
contradict
can't afford it.
myself, but it hasn't led to a bunch of recent championships for the Yankees
Yeah,
That's true.
or the Mets.
and that's also
Now it has it's
Or the
helped-
Dodgers. One
Dodgers,
clown
Rangers,
title
like,
in 2020.
Teams
Yeah.
have been there. You put yourself
Mickey
in the
Mouse title.
conversation. It's obviously not the only way to win, but in this case, the Cubs do have an advantage over every team in their division. I don't need a cap to take that away.
Yeah, and that was also.
I just need them to act like the big team in the division.
And when you said like the Yankees and Dodgers aren't winning World Series, that's part of my point is that they're not going out and they're not winning the World Series every year. They're not even in the World Series every year. They're just continuing to give themselves chances to be in that spot, and that's the point that I'm trying to make. Is the more chances you give yourself, the better your odds are that you're eventually going to find yourself in the World Series, like both those teams are now, and they could be in it next year because of. They're going to go out and invest resources in the roster the year after. Like, they're always going to have that chance.
I was doing a TikTok live last night, and someone asked me how I felt about Cubs ownership. And I said something along the lines of, like, right now, like, entering this offseason, like, a lot of the fan base is already really down on the Ricketts family because it's been 8 years since they won the World Series and how they decided to sell off assets and all of that back 3 years ago. Like, this offseason will be as telling as ever to how much ownership truly cares about winning. And it's not like, I don't necessarily think it depends on how much you spend in free agency or whatever. It's just like they need to show that they care about making the Cubs a winning organization again. And they haven't really been doing a lot of that of late, you know? And like, I really do think that this offseason could be the tipping point for a lot of fans who have defended ownership because they are believers in Jed Hoyer's vision. And listen, while I gave Jed an F, that doesn't mean that I think that he's done a terrible job the entire time here. As I said yesterday, I also said yesterday that I'm rooting for Jed to get this thing on, you know, to finish the plan, quote unquote, and put this team in the playoffs and like make it a real contender. This is the offseason where like it's really the last chance. I feel like I'm repeating myself from last offseason, but like I basically am because they didn't do anything like big enough to make the team a real contender. This is the offseason where he has to, as in Jed, and then also it'd be nice if ownership just kind of gave him that extra little boost. Like, okay, you went over the luxury tax, so fine, but at the same time, like, why not more? I don't know. If other teams are going to, if the Dodgers and the Yankees are going to spend that kind of money, I'm just saying, like, I don't know who the player is. I don't think it's Juan Soto as much as I want, as much as we dream, but like, to me, again, I just think a lot of people's tipping points on ownership and how they feel could change if this team isn't good in 25.
Like Derek Rose said, why not us? Why not us? It was why not me? But whatever.
Why not me?
Anyways, you get my point. All right, so the news came out after the podcast yesterday. Yes. The Cubs sent out a release saying, hey, by the way, Nico Hoerner had hand surgery back on, or flexor tendon surgery back on October 11th. It was Dr. Keith Meister, the Texas Rangers team doctor who's well-known and well-respected and highly thought of, but a little surprising, right? Like, because now they're not going to follow up. We're not going to know how he's doing until he gets to spring training, and we'll see what the next step is there.
Cubs convention is probably when we'll get an update.
Maybe Cubs convention, we get some sort of update if he's actually doing something.
Or maybe the GM
meetings.
Yeah, right. But so it's like, there's two parts of this. One is obviously the offseason trade value if you were going, because we just spent 3/4 of a season saying, man, if they have to trade somebody or mix things up off the major league roster, everybody loves Nico. Another team would love Nico, but you might have the prospects ready to fill his spot at the major league level, whether it's Shaw or Cam Smith or moving Michael Busch over or whatever. There potentially are options there. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is, how much did this impact what was going on with Nico Hoerner this season? The 7 home runs, he finished right at OPS plus 151 games. He's in 101. He had less stolen bases. It wouldn't impact that. But 7 home runs, might he had more home runs? I would think, now the flexor tendon you're talking about goes down all the way down to your fingers. It's his right hand, correct?
Yes.
So that goes, if you're watching on live YouTube, that goes all the way up to your forearm, from what I understand. And so it's really like almost a forearm injury. But one of the things it greatly does is restricts and causes pain when you're trying to grip something.
Yeah.
Right? Like, think about it. The muscles on your forearm, as you grip like this, it's that those tendons that go up over your forearm. That, if he was playing with this, Patrick Mooney wrote that basically the forearm thing was something he was going through for a good portion of the season. That had to be outrageously painful.
Yeah,
throughout the season.
And I think, credit to Nico for being, because he also, like, was it like a fractured hand or something, right?
I was going to say, like, in the middle of the season, it was reported that he fractured his hand and he was playing through it.
Right, and then so there's.
Well, I think he sat a few games, but
that's a thing too. Like, is this
like a week and a half?
I saw DFW Susie talking about it in the Discord because that's where I hang out, and
every day. And
she's on there. She's saying he's the second best guy in the U.S. next to the guy for Tommy John right now. Similar work. Everybody's going to him right now. But she was saying, look, we don't know. Like, is this related to the broken hand? Was this a reaction to the broken hand? Yeah. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, so he ended up playing 151 games. Like, it's a career high. And like I said, I think it was a fractured hand or something during the summer that he sat for a few games. And I remember people yelling that they should just put him on the IL. I think he ended up missing like 5 or 6 games, whatever. But yeah, I mean,
me and Luke were the ones yelling too.
This is something that
credit to us.
No credit to you for yelling about it.
And Corey, I'll throw in Corey too.
This is something that, they always say, like, everyone's dealing with something. Everyone, like, especially late in the year, everyone's dealing with something. Everyone's kind of going through it a little bit. They never really reveal what that means. But if this is something that Nico was dealing with for a while, like, yeah, I think it does help explain some of the, he was barely a beat above league average hitter. I think you saw, I think he was fine at second base. I don't know how much it would have affected him. Obviously, he still had like a Gold Glove caliber case at second base defensively. So I don't know if that necessarily affected him too much. But as Luke said, like, he went into the season talking about adding power and then getting more power into the swing, making that more of a part of his game, and it didn't really happen for him. And so you have to wonder if dealing with this did hurt, his ability to have a little bit more power in his swing. I mean, it seems like it would, just based on the injury, just based on how it affects the muscles in your hand, like, like you said, Luke, from forearm to hand, like how it affects things. Like, it would seem like it would. I don't want to say that it 100% did because I ain't no doctor, but it seemed like it would. And so with Nico, now you're kind of, and maybe it answers some questions about his season, but it's also like, well, now where do you go from here with him?
Right, because I again, internet doctor. I'm not. DFW Susie sounds like she knows more about it than any of us know about the actual surgery and stuff. But it sounds, what I was reading about it was, most of the time it's just splints or something if it's a problem, and let it cool down a little bit. This sounds like you're reattaching the tendons at parts. And to what Gary's saying, if Patrick Mooney says in his article this was significant portions of the season that he had this forearm strain, this would be at least the second time on this season where we would say, are the Cubs doing these guys any favors by letting them tough it out? Like, potentially third time. If ALLCITY was never healthy and just continued to pitch and it just got worse and then he looked bad and okay, now he needs surgery. That could, A, be a possibility. B, Dansby Swanson hurts his knee and offensively tries to gut it out, but is not the same player for a good portion of the season. That's another possibility. I'm not saying I know that it's true. I'm just saying, okay, that's 2 possibilities. Third possibility now would be that Nico Hoerner had this arm injury and maybe he should have just had the surgery halfway through the season. But we let him gut it out because that's like, I'm all for letting guys gut it out and guys being tough and not, every time they have a little ache and pain taking 4 or 5 days off. But we're talking about 2 of the 3 guys needing surgery at the end of the season now.
Yeah. I mean, took the words right out of my mouth, Luke. Like, whether I'll say this: when I met Ethan Roberts at the Club 400 event, when Sammy Sosa was there, we ended up somehow, some way, getting on the topic of talking about guys who play through injuries and stuff, and he raved about how the respect around the league is gained by guys who try to play through things, and I get that. All right. I'm
sure
as a, you know, I played basketball all the way through high school. I gave baseball a shot and I was really bad at it, as the internet likes to remind me. But like I've sprained an ankle many times, turned an ankle many times, and tried to play through it when I played. All right. Like, I get it. There's that competitive nature. You want to try and battle through things. I get it. But like, I just think that the Cubs, it's not like they didn't have any guys that they could have thrown out there, given an opportunity to, you know. It's not like they didn't have anyone. So that's my question, is like why you would put them through that. Now, at the same time, though, like, what are Swanson and Hoerner and all those guys saying to the Cubs medical staff too, you know? Like, I think a little bit of it goes both ways. And so, you know, I don't know, man. Like, I just think that, like, what a lot of the chat is saying is, like, the medical staff has to be better. And the fact that they're bringing some new guys in is a good sign.
Or they just have, or the team in general has to be more firm with the players. Like, listen, you got to be more honest with us.
That too.
Like, did Nico make this worse by not taking more time off? And is that the reason it led to surgery? I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
I didn't see who had it just a couple minutes ago in the chat. Said, what about the belly? Robert Fox. You're right. Belly and the rib injury was another one that,
they put him on the injured list.
Right, but he also went back out and played for a minute after he ran into the wall.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
I think he stayed in for like another inning.
Yeah, another inning or so. All right, we'll talk more about Nico in a second, but first want to tell you about another one of our great sponsors. Some beers can say they're brewed for baseball, but only Blue Moon is brewed by baseball. Beer and baseball just go together, and no beer goes better than the one that was literally born in a ballpark. Blue Moon was created at Coors Field in Denver, Colorado. Blue Moon isn't just another beer. It's a whole different experience. It's a vibe. That's what the kids tell me. So why strike out with the same old beer when you can get something that is one of a kind? A beer this good only comes around once in a blue moon. You can enjoy it all year long. Bring the ballpark to you with Blue Moon Belgian-style wheat ale. It's one of a kind every time. Get Blue Moon delivered by visiting get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO to see your delivery options. That's get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO. Blue Moon, made brighter. Celebrate responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
We're sponsored by Chicago Sports Network, the new home for the Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox games. CHSN will broadcast more than 300 live games per year across the Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox, and will feature a full lineup of original Chicago-focused sports content. They're also Chicago-based, Chicago-built, and Chicago to the core. And they're bringing it to every corner of Chicago across 77 neighborhoods and beyond. As CHSN Chicago comes first, visit chsn.com for more info on how to watch the Bulls, Hawks, and White Sox games all season long. Shout out to my guy, Michael Bowling.
Shout out.
So to kind of finish what I was saying, like Gary said in the chat that medical staff and the strength staff aren't the same. Like, I don't care. Like, the point is that, like, whoever. All of that in general is just, it was not good in 2024. Honestly, and this is not even just 2024. It feels like the last couple of years. You know, when we talk about how there's a lot of the same questions entering 25, and before I say this, I don't know if things would have worked out. I don't know if it would have been good. But when I mentioned that you had guys, well, you had Matt Shaw, who we all thought that we would see this year, you know?
Yeah.
Like, again, I don't know if it would have worked out. I don't know if he would have produced. But we're now entering 25 with the same question about, like, how is this guy going to be in? You could have easily just put Nico on the injured list and let that heal or go about it whatever way. It's all in hindsight. And again, I don't know if it was going to work out, but my biggest thing is that it's not like you didn't have the depth to try something out, to see if things would work out. I personally don't think Shaw would have came in and just gave you all the production that Nico Hoerner gave you, but you're now sitting here in a situation where he's kind of a question, you know? Like, I knew that he fractured the hand or whatever, and, like, the fact that he played through it and still ended up being a near 4-WAR player says a lot about how good of a baseball player he really is. But, like, at the same time, like, I still think his offensive season was still down compared to 23. And, yeah, like Ryan said, his slug wasn't there. And now we're going to enter 25, and just because of an injury, am I going to sit here and question if this guy can hit double-digit homers again? No, not really. I don't necessarily buy that this injury or whatever has had a massive impact. He still had an incredible September this year, you know?
It's true.
So, to me, it's just the fact that, like, you had some options. I don't know if they would have worked out, but it's better than throwing a guy out there who's hurt.
So those are pretty good points, Cody.
Yeah, I think
Credit to Cody.
I think that's what a lot of
The
people
good
in the
September
chat
is a
kinda
good point.
feel,
Like,
you know,
can't
like,
say it.
you can't say like that he just should not have played at all to end the year because September was good. I don't know. And I know, I was listening to Northside Territory, our friends Patrick Mooney and Sahada Sharma.
We give them a lot of promotion here.
Yeah, I mean,
Credit to us.
they're good at what they do. I like
They
those
are.
guys.
They are good. Yeah.
But I don't remember exactly who they were talking about. It may have been Dansby. I'm not 100% sure. But talking about, like, putting guys on the injured list and stuff like that, I don't believe players need to agree to go on the injured list. But there are, like, it's not like as cut and dry as that, if you know what I mean. Like, I think there's more nuance to, like, putting guys on the injured list. If a guy, like you kind of mentioned it, like, what is the player exactly telling him? Does he feel it feels better than what it actually is? That kind of stuff. So there's more nuance to it. And with Nico, like, this is a guy who's had some injury history before, not this specifically, but I don't think. But he's had some injury history before, but the last 3 years, he's now played in a majority of baseball games. I think it was 130 or something in 22, and then 150 and 151 the last 2 years. Like, that's important. That's valuable. And when you're talking about a guy who's as valuable to this team, especially on the defensive side, as Nico Hoerner is to the Cubs, just like I said, there is more nuance to just throwing a guy on the injured list, especially when the season's still kind of on the line, right? Like, if it's something where the group as a whole believes he can play through, he can still contribute to winning when they are technically still in it, even though, like, Luke was out in June. Like, there is more nuance. There's more nuance to it there than just saying they should have put Nico Hoerner on the injured list, ended his season, whatever it was, right? I'm not saying that they shouldn't have done that or should have done that. I think there's just, like I said, there's more nuance to a decision like that, and it's not as black and white as it may seem on the surface, I guess.
I just think the bigger part of this isn't that how will Nico recover or should he have played this season. I think the bigger part of it now, where we're at now, is how does it impact the offseason? Well, he's not tradable coming off surgery. If he was indeed a guy that you were thinking, hey, we're going to get our superstar player and we love Nico, and I don't think this is actually very likely, but if he was an easy guy for anybody, a fan, a front office person, anybody to focus and say another team would want him. He's affordable. He's a good player. He's under control, and you could put him with some prospects and potentially get a really good player back, right? That's not happening. We talked about mixing up we have too many guys of good defense, pretty good offense, not enough power. How are you going to mix that all up? I don't know what that is. Like, are you more reluctant to, if the alternative was trade Matt Shaw, okay? Because teams will be after him. Can you afford to trade Matt Shaw with Nico coming off of hand? I mean, it seems like this is sort of hamstrung the franchise a little bit in some of the flexibility for what they can do this offseason. Just like last year, it was the Bellinger, is he staying, is he going, is he staying, is he going, was kind of like waiting for it. The flexibility of what they can do, this has made the job more difficult.
Yeah, and you mentioned Matt Shaw, but like we talked about, yesterday we talked about Triantos.
Yeah.
And how he seemed like a pretty likely trade candidate, at least in like someone you would look to just because of the redundancy of the position, Nico, Matt Shaw, all that. Now, if Nico were to miss any extended time going into the season, because like we don't know what this timeline of recovery is going to be. It could be a pretty big range of time that he could miss. Is James Triantos someone that may get a look at second, or may need to keep around to get a look at second base now? How does that change the calculus for him versus
talking about Madrigal starting at second base?
Oh God. Do not. All right. I'm already down. Bad. Don't put that energy out there. Oh my goodness.
Gary says you can still trade Triantos. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying how does not
it's just riskier.
A potentially not healthy Nico Hoerner, how does that affect your likelihood or the Cubs' desire to trade him this offseason? You know, like does it? I'm not saying it does. I'm just saying it could, especially without knowing how long Nico could potentially miss if he does miss any time.
Just wish they still had Jake Slaughter. Right, Gary? If they had Jake Slaughter, they'd have some versatility.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think it makes an already difficult offseason more difficult for Jed Hoyer, who is potentially on the hot seat.
I personally don't really think this surgery or whatever really affects anything related to Hoerner, because I didn't think they were going to trade Hoerner anyway. I think they could have. And they still can.
Well, I think it affects their ability to trade him. Like even if they weren't.
I just don't believe that they're actually going to.
Yeah, you don't believe that was ever.
And so
I think it kind of brings his odds to being traded like pretty far low than what they could have been.
Sure,
you know?
Yeah. And that's fine, because I personally don't want to go into 25 in a year that you have to make the playoffs with a rookie at second base that you don't know what you're going to get out of whenever, despite the fact that Nico was hurt this year, still gave you a really productive season. So my hope is that he gets healthy, comes into spring training healthy, and can get his offense back to at least more like 2023 than 2024. He's got to hit at least 280 for him to be a productive offensive hitter. He's got to at least hit 280. He hit 250 most of the season. A hot September put him at around 270. So credit to him for that. But they need more. They need him to be more like 23 for this team to get over the top with added additions, in my opinion. And I think Shaw can be a great utility piece for 2025. So it's not even that I'm out on Shaw or Triantos. I just think that you can insert one of those guys as a nice utility player who can play all across the infield. I think that's a safer and better plan than trading Nico and rolling with a rookie at second base.
Should we go back to our grades? We'll see how the Nico thing unfolds. Hopefully we do get updates throughout the offseason, sometime before spring training. But it'll be interesting to see if it does impact anything that happens this offseason or doesn't happen this offseason.
And I think the idea is that there won't be anything like definitive timeline-wise until they let the months go by, see how he rehabs and recovers and gets to spring training. I think that's kind of how it's being looked at right now. Like the Cubs didn't give anything to us outside of like that he had this surgery. This is the doctor who performed it, and that was about it. Like nothing as far as the timeline goes. So it would seem like because it's a surgery that could have, like I said, a pretty wide range of recovery time, that to give him the offseason, see how he, obviously check in, monitor him, that kind of stuff, but definitely see how he reports to spring training and where he's at at that point.
Okay, report card time. Here we go. The Palatine Pounder. Mike Tauchman. We weren't sure where we were going to go with the grades, and we said, well, you know what, let's give Tauchman his own grade. Let's not just dump him in center field with Bellinger and PCA, and let's give Tauchman his own grade. The reason I wanted to do that is this may make some people angry and say, how can you give him a B? How can you give Mike Tauchman? Because for a portion of the season, and by the way, they were pretty good during this portion of the season, Mike Tauchman was the best player on the team. He was the most valuable player on that team for a while. He was that good. And he's what? Arguably your fifth outfielder? Well, you have to remember who he is going into the season and what he's costing you and how you found him.
Yeah, it's true.
His cost is very low, and he was giving you very high production. Now, were there slumps, and by the time PCA, you wanted to start to make the transition to get PCA the playing time, that came at the cost of Mike Tauchman. But that doesn't mean Tauchman had done anything to deserve his demotion. He was a great backup outfielder. I have no problem. Now, people may say they want to go younger. You want to start seeing whoever, Canario, Casey, whoever, become these extra outfielders. That's okay. I understand that. But having someone like Mike Tauchman on the team, I guarantee if the Cubs don't want him on the team, there are contending teams that will look at Mike Tauchman with great value.
I agree.
Yeah. No, I think.
So I gave him a B.
Yeah. I mean, I think I gave him a B- was where I was at.
We gave him yesterday, and we didn't end up doing it, so I forgot.
Oh, a B-. How could you? Fellow mid-suburban league.
I will say, like, when I gave that grade, I put a lot of weight on his May 1st through end of July. May through July. When he didn't hit very well. There was an injury in there as well. He missed a month in there. So it's really more like 2 months or so. But his numbers, like, he had that great April. At the end of April, he was hitting 307, 955 OPS, was really good. And like you mentioned, and that at that point in time, this is when the Cubs were doing really well. He was a huge part of that. From May 1st through July 31st, he hit 216, had a 576 OPS. Obviously not great. The injury was in there as well. So he missed a bunch of time. I don't know if the walk-off was in that one.
Vibes, the walk-off, the shirt came off.
Was
vibes.
Was the walk-off in that stretch of time?
I was just looking at that video.
Naked Tauchman.
Was a walk-off in that stretch of time?
I don't know.
But then from August 1st through the end of the season, he did hit 277, 880 OPS. At that point, he wasn't really playing a whole lot. He was, a pinch hitter late in the game, or if someone needed a day off, he'd play. But they were rolling with Ian Happ, Crow-Armstrong, Cody Bellinger in the outfield. That's just where it was at. So he didn't get a lot of time. He was, I was looking at the numbers, and I don't have them in front of me anymore. I was looking at him yesterday. He was really clutch for this team. I think Cody, I was telling you, like, his numbers in like high leverage situations or runners on, they were pretty good. And I give him a lot of credit for that, for being a guy. Like, pinch hitting is one of the hardest things to do in baseball as far as a role, because you don't play a whole lot. And then all of a sudden you're coming in cold and asked to get a big hit, most likely in a big spot late in the game, right? He did it really well this year. I'm rethinking my B-. I may boost it up to a B.
There it is.
I don't think I gave him, maybe I wasn't giving him enough credit for.
What if the graphics already made?
Yeah, the graphics made.
It's not his fault. Like, do I think Mike Tauchman is an everyday outfielder on a really good team? Nobody can be if there's an injury and you need him to be that. Like, I'm grading him on, this guy's a fourth outfielder.
Yeah. I will say.
And he was a good one.
I will say he did not rate very well defensively. Like, he was a pretty poorly rated defender. I want to go find like his stats as far as outfield goes.
It's got to be better than Seiya, though.
I'm just saying in general. Like, he had in the outfield, he had -5 defensive runs saved and -1 out above average, and that wasn't a lot. Like we said, like, limited time in the outfield.
I didn't factor that in. That could drop.
And that's coming off of a season when not a whole lot more innings, but he did have 4 defensive runs saved and was at 0 outs above average. So a better defensive player last season than he was this season. I don't know. I'm gonna sit on my B- for a while. But I will say, I think, like you mentioned, like, he was a fourth outfielder, pretty much ended up becoming a fifth outfielder, because it may have been a point where Seiya goes out there if they needed him. So But he had a good season. There was a stretch there where he wasn't hitting very well. He was hurt. But I think he was someone that came through when they needed him a lot of times, especially some of the walk-offs. Like, he was a guy. I mean, he's a good 4th to 5th outfielder, someone you want on your bench, someone you want in that clubhouse, someone you want in case you do deal with injuries. You got a guy like Mike Tauchman in there. I think that's a good spot to have him.
Cody, you started the summer of Mike Tauchman.
I guess.
And then it went, with like brush fire. It just took over the city. I guess we shouldn't say that with Chicago, but what was this one called? This wasn't the summer of Mike Tauchman. Was this just 2.0? Are we going to look back at 23 and 24 and say those were miserable seasons, but we got great value out of Mike Tauchman?
The Mike Tauchman jersey will be one of the best obscure jerseys that you see at Wrigley in 10 years. That's it. Like, that's how I feel about Mike Tauchman. That's kind of how the summer of Mike Tauchman bit started. Like, I didn't think he was going to be here and become as valuable as he has become. And that's why the bit started. Also, I was just drunk on a Saturday and tweeted it. But, I mean, this year for me, it definitely, like, I guess it was essentially the same as last year. So I gave him a B. And I think last year I probably gave him a B too. But I just think for the role, like you said, Luke, he plays the role well. He's a great pinch hitter. I think they use him more as like a pinch hitter to lead off an inning because he's an on-base machine. 357 on-base percentage this year, just a little few points less than last year, 363 in 2023. And he was a 111 WRC plus. So, for his role, of course, I wish he could slug a little bit more, but I could say that about everyone on this team. But for the role that they asked him to play, and like you said, like for the first 2 months of the year, he had like the highest WAR on the team.
He looked like he was going to be an all-star for a while. I was like, what is going on?
We were entering June, and we're like, who has the highest WAR on the Cubs? Oh, Michael Busch and Mike Tauchman.
Yeah. And, by the way, I do remember what I said back then. This is all wonderful, and I'm happy for those guys, but that is not a good sign.
Right. Yeah. No, you're right. I think, and I could say this about a lot of guys on the team. It's like, if the Cubs had some real star power on this team, we'd look at Mike Tauchman as more of like a Chris Coughlin type.
Mm-hmm.
Cub fans loved Chris Coughlin. Like, he was a great bench bat who could play
Reed Johnson,
who could play all over the field, and was a huge piece to them winning in 2016. And that's what the Cubs are asking Mike Tauchman to be.
So where do you want Mike Tauchman to factor into the 2025 Chicago Cubs? We all put him in the B range.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't know what moves are going to be made this offseason, but in a perfect world for you, what does Mike Tauchman do for the Cubs next year? Less of this?
No, I think this role suited him pretty well. A guy that they felt like they could count on to fill in. Like, he was, again, at their healthiest, he was like their 4th or 5th outfielder. When Seiya got hurt, when Bellinger got hurt, like, he was someone that they felt they could rely on to fill in and do that well. And he did that pretty well this year. I think, like, Ian Happ's locked in left field. Crow-Armstrong's locked in center field. If Cody Bellinger comes back, he's probably your right fielder. If he doesn't, like, maybe they go with Seiya out there in right field again. I don't know exactly. I do think having a left-handed bat off the bench you feel like you could trust at the plate late in the game and to go in and play defense if needed, obviously. I think that's a pretty valuable position or a pretty valuable role. Not as valuable as like a starting position or anything like that, but just to have a guy you feel like you can count on. A left-handed bat, I think, is especially kind of raises that up more for me. I think the role that he had this season, maybe a little more playing time than he got the last month or so of the season, but the role that he ended up having as that 4th outfielder, 5th outfielder, I think it worked out pretty well for what they needed him to do.
This is
in the
one
last
where
half of the season.
This is one where one where the Bellinger decision will impact things because you do have to add Owen Casey to the 40-man roster this year, and you're trying to figure out what the future is for whether it's Alcantara or Casey or whoever might be in that next wave of players, where they might fit into this team. And then you don't know if Bellinger is going to be back. So, like, it's not that they have too many. They just need to figure out the right fixtures. Somebody in the chat said, I think it was Niren, I don't think he factors in. He should be part of 2020. Yeah, I don't think he makes sense for 2025. I can really see both sides of it. Like, if the team needs to move forward, it wouldn't be anything that Mike Tauchman had done wrong. And I don't like just letting good players go away. Now, I do think you could trade him to somebody and get something back because somebody will value what we just talked about. But do you need to see Casey at the major league level? Do you need to see Alcantara at the major league level? You're not going to have more than 5 outfielders.
No, that's a fair point.
Right? Like, so then it becomes a game of numbers. How does he fit into that mix? I think he's an interesting name to watch this offseason because I think if Tauchman were moved, that would signal to me that something else is going on, right?
I think he could be a piece that's part of a trade that maybe brings in a reliever or something like that. You know, like, I like the guy, obviously.
I do too.
But it's like,
we did have him on like our trade deadline rankings of like guys who
I thought he was getting.
right?
He was number 1 on my list, I think, of my trade deadline. Like, to me, it was like you got to move an outfielder at some point because you got too many. And now, like you said, Luke, the Bellinger decision very much plays a part in how the Cubs might operate with him, and it in many ways it kind of sucks just because like I think the way he plays his role is really well. Also, he's a Bears fan, so.
Now, he is a left-handed bat, and if you start to take away Bellinger and Tauchman, now you better find ways to replace that.
Yeah. And
sure.
You made the point about Owen Casey. Like, maybe he's a guy that they run out there, give some runway to try to acclimate at the big league level. It's possible.
Similar to what PCA got.
Yeah. Casey spent the entire season in AAA, so now it's like, how many more AAA at-bats does he need? Which, in my opinion, at this point, not very many, if any. You know, like, so it'll be a really interesting following Tauchman this offseason in terms of what could happen. But overall, I think his Cubs tenure has been pretty solid. And again, the obscure jersey in 10 years will be fun to look at Wrigley Field.
Or the CHGO Summer Mike Tauchman shirt.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be more retro. That's what I
fun story to always tell.
Did he have two walk-offs this year?
We had the one against the White Sox. There it is. There's the
that's against the Cardinals.
He had one against the Cardinals. I think. Did he have one against the White Sox too?
Yeah, he had a walk-off homer against the White Sox. Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. I thought he had a couple.
He walked off the Cardinals in consecutive years.
That was probably the Cardinals walk-off was probably the best moment of the entire season. That was a fun game. Down 5-2 in the 9th inning. Came all the way back and won.
Now the White Sox one was pretty great too.
Not really,
because we were there for our takeover, and I was halfway home and beat traffic.
Yeah.
The fact that they were trailing to the 2024 White Sox
is amazing.
In multiple
Both
games, multiple times, and somehow one is on one hand cool and awesome. On the other hand, it's like, how did you ever trail to that team?
Yeah, he had the walk-off home run against the White Sox, and then a walk-off.
Yeah.
Was it a single? I don't even know what it was, but he did have that walk-off against the Cardinals. That's the ripping the jersey off one.
Yeah.
Chef Kevin says, time to see how the kids can play. All right, thanks to everybody that has joined in the live YouTube chat. Some good comments out there today. Most people were pretty nice there. I see only 20 thumbs up. If you could pump that number on the way out.
Hit the like button for
pump it up.
Winning Game 6 8 years ago.
There it is.
Talking about that at all.
We never even got to it. Happy anniversary.
There you go.
Cubs went to the World Series.
I dream of times like that again.
Times like these. All right. Thanks for checking us out. We're back at 11:30 live tomorrow right here on the same CHGO Sports YouTube page. And we hope you'll be with us. Until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And, of course, fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.